So good morning again and welcome at the Co-Production Forum. For the one who don't know me, I am Frédéric Pieters-Daveskerk and I work within the Co-Production Forum team. And I am very happy to introduce the session of the co-production with the CNC conferences, as Vincent said earlier. So we went on a bridge in Scandinavia, and then we went through a tunnel from France to the UK. So adaptations of very successful series are becoming more and more common within Europe. So we thought with the CNC that it could be very interesting to have a proper talk about that. And I give the mic to Nico from C21, who is going to lead this session today. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce the panel for this morning's final session, Intra-European Remakes HBO Europe case study. So we'll be going through and dissecting the process of adapting the Norwegian drama Mammon, which originally aired on NRK in Norway. That it has later been adapted twice by HBO Europe in Poland and the Czech Republic. So, my first panelist, Vegard Eriksen Stenberg, the author of Mammon. Herrimund Eriksen, another author of Mammon. Noel Hedges, Executive Vice President of Content at DRG in the UK. Isa Wopu, Executive Producer of the Polish remake at HBO Europe. Ratislav Schleyer, Producer of the Czech remake. Jonathan Young, Executive Producer at HBO Europe. And last but certainly not the least, Anthony Root, Executive Vice President of Original Programming and Production at HBO Europe, who will be giving us a brief introduction into HBO Europe's strategy.
Thank you. Yes, my introduction will be extremely brief because we've only got 60 minutes and you've got all these people on the stage to anatomize the process of turning a wonderful Norwegian show into two further iterations in a different part of the world, and our colleagues here can talk about that. We've been doing original programming at HBO Europe, original fiction I should qualify that, since 2010, so we're in our 6th year. We've done a mixture of adaptations of existing formats, most notably one that was on HBO in America, which was In Treatment, which we've done a lot of. And the best place I thought to start to contextualize the conversation about Mammon within our output was to show you a 2-minute 30, 2-minute 40 reel of all the things we've done, but you can see how the balance we've achieved between originals and remakes. So I hope you enjoy the session, and I hope you see some of the thinking that went behind what we did and how we did it. So let's run the show reel, please.
obětoval svůj život pro svou zemi, pro правду, а свободу.
So that's a great taster of the impact HBO Europe has had in Eastern Europe with its local productions. And a big part of that has been its remakes of Mammon in Poland and the Czech Republic. But it makes sense to begin at the beginning with Mammon and the creators. So Vegard, if you could briefly tell the audience, if they're already not aware, tell them about Mammon, tell them what the series was inspired by, and why you think it became a format.
Well, it is inspired. We are looking for a story about two brothers, and I am the producer, accidentally, and he's my brother. So one of them is nice.
Accidentally.
But it's a story about two brothers, actually. It started from there, and it's kind of a remake of the Bible, in a way. But it's about the telling of the story of Abraham and what are you actually willing to sacrifice. That's the hardcore of the show. And turn it around, and what are you not willing to sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And in that perspective, we put Mammon. And you can maybe explain Mammon.
For the non-biblical audience, it means it's about greed in the Bible, biblical sense. I think Jesus yells some point in the Bible. I know he does. You can't have both. You can't choose both God and Mammon. You have to choose between good or whatever you want in this life. So you should do good things.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at the original Mammon, please.
Sånn som dette, det skal ikke være personlig.
Han må ta ansvar. Daniel Verås har underslått 2,3 millioner kroner.
Du kommer til å komme i fengsel for dette.
Ledelsen i Hydro har gått gjennom påstanden om uoverensstemmelser som er blitt fremsatt, blant annet i Aftenavisens artikler.
På skolen så sier de at du har lurt unna penger. Har du det?
Vi er jo ikke storfamilien.
Så klarer du hva som er i ferd med å skje? Du kommer til å sitte inn i maks 2 år. 2 surum, du har fått jævlig mange søte.
Hvem er din kilde i Ungarn?
Hun kaller seg Sofia.
Du tuller nå, ikke sant?
Alt stemmer. Bevisene, filene, adressene, kontoene. Alle fakta peker mot Daniel.
Sofia, kilden. Det er broren din du hadde kontakt med. All chat, all e-post, alle filen. Alt sammen. Det var han.
Dette er Daniels siste hilsen. Han skriker til et bilde av Abrahams offer som henger i min kirke.
Den datoen. Er det mål på ettertid?
Dato, det er ikke noen dato, det er et bibelsted. Første Mosebok, kapittel 22, vers 10. Og Abraham strakte frem hånden for å offre sin sønn. Da ropte Herrens engel, legg ikke hånden på gutten, for nå vet jeg at du frykter Gud. Det største offer I den kristne tro. Offre sin egen sønn.
22.10. Det en dato. Det den datoen Daniel tok sitt eget liv.
Nå ruller snøballen, og den det umulig å stoppe.
Abraham! Nei!
It's a really fascinating series full of intrigue and mystery and horror in a way. I forgot to mention I'm a journalist, so it was particularly appealing to me. I'm a senior reporter for C21 Media in the UK, just so you know. So, Vegard and Jerry. Well, Vegard, you had experience working on a remake of a UK show, 2,000 Acres of Sky, a few years ago for NRK. So I was wondering, what did you bring to the experience of being part of a remake? Because obviously you know what it's like to be in charge of someone else's baby, as it were. So how did that affect your approach when you knew that Mammon was going to be remade?
First of all, you have to trust the people that you're actually going to produce it, and you have to give them the freedom to work on the project and to take the story wherever they want to do it. And with 2,000 Acres of Sky, we actually did that, and had a very good cooperation with BBC. Adrian Bate, who's here somewhere, maybe at least in this Séries Mania, and that was very, very nice, and we could do whatever the way we want to do the show, and it looks very differently from the BBC version. You have to locally adapt it to make it work. You have to tell the story to your audience, and you can't just copy a show. It will not work. So that's why we say that it's up to them to do the best show, but I say we have to share experience with our show, and that's important to say. Where did we have difficulties in the editing process, for instance? But give them the freedom to find the way.
And Jerry, what in particular was your involvement in these remakes?
Not that much, actually. We had some meetings and we talked. I think most important for us is to make it better. Try to compete with us, make it to your local environment, and take whatever you find interesting. But don't. I think there's almost no shows are perfect. Mammon was not either. I think The Wire and West Wing. Yes. Apart from that, no shows. All shows can be improved. If we got to do it one more time, we'd do things differently. So don't repeat our mistakes. That was most important to us. Make it better.
Okay.
And it's very fun to watch them because they're very different and they're still from the same baby. Mother. We like the mother metaphor better.
Yeah, we've got a lot of family metaphors already now. And Noel, your company DRG was obviously instrumental in getting it remade. When did Mammon first become on your horizon at the distributor, and why did you see it have the potential as a format?
Well, DRG's over the sort of last, I'd say, sort of 10 years, been growing quite extensively its experience in selling scripted formats, and we've had great success with one of our biggest shows, Doc Martin, and selling it into about sort of 8 or 9 different territories around the world. And so our sales team had just gathered that experience and saw increasingly scripted format deals as another level of exploitation on top of the original version. So it became part of their sales process, if you like. In selling the original, they will also have a conversation with certain individuals about remakes. So we had a relationship with NRK on the non-scripted side, on their, and we have a deal with them to represent all their non-scripted formats internationally. And Mammon, the original first season, I have to say, is actually, the tape of this is actually distributed by Beta Film, but the format wasn't part of that deal. So given our experience with Doc Martin and other scripted formats, we saw an opportunity to, because it was a successful show, it was a really good show, we saw a really good opportunity to take that out internationally. And, simply put, that's what our sales exec did. They had a conversation with HBO and the rest is history.
And as a distributor, do you benefit more when you sell a ready-made to when you sell the format rights?
Not necessarily. It depends where you're selling it. I think it's another level of exploitation. It's not as straightforward as selling a piece of tape, for sure. In some territories, it actually meaningfully can replace the tape sale that you probably won't. In some territories, you won't make a tape sale.
Mm-hmm.
So selling the scripted format actually makes a meaningful way of generating revenue from the IP. Some territories will pay more for the tape, maybe, than the format. It depends. It really depends. But it's another stream of revenue.
And Isa, you executive produced the Polish remake. Yeah. So, in terms of what you wanted to do differently to the original, what was your main drive when you approached the format?
I would say that when you're approaching the format and you get this decision that you want to adapt, there must be a certain reason. And of course, there is the story itself that you find fascinating. And well, it's hard to skip the story when someone tells you that just adapted the Bible. It's bold enough. I mean, it was bold enough for us. But from the other hand, what guys did was a very strong and compelling genre story, conspiracy thriller, which we found maybe not super easy, but very attractive to adapt for Poland at the time that we approached the project. Why? Because we had our small anniversary of 25 years since Poland started to be, well, independent country. And we said, okay, who are the guys who at that time were getting adult? I mean, changing the position from, you know, being a kiddo or pretty mature, but still not the adult, and starting their also professional life. And all those choices that you need to do, which were, that's what we thought, a little bit easier for our parents, for their parents, become kind of milestone of what where we are now as a country, as a society. Of course, I'm not trying to say that we reverse the story. This is our pact. I mean, the guys who created pact in Polish version, that's the generation who, you know, get to the word of adulthood in the moment of transformation. That was super tempting. We were also tempted by the story about journalism. I think this is the subject that it's not touched very often. Rather didn't happen in Poland in terms of series, and that was also interesting.
Mm-hmm. And obviously incredibly relevant, you know, this month with the Panama Papers.
Absolutely.
It's very telling. I think this is a good point to take a look at Pact, the Polish version of Mammon.
Macie duże pieniądze. I to jest problem. Co można zrobić z taką kasą? Co trzeba poświęcić, żeby ją zdobyć?
Komisja powołana przez zarząd Hydro przeanalizowała zarzuty przeciwko dyrektorowi Danielowi Grodeckiemu dotyczące domniemanej defraudacji środków.
8 milionów? Jakim cudem oni tego nie znaleźli?
Widocznie nie wiedzieli, gdzie szukać.
Pójdziesz do więzienia.
Więzienie nie jest dla takich jak ja, kochanie. Jesteś moim bratem.
Nic nie zmieni w tym artykule, żeby było jasne.
Kto jest twoim informatorem?
Kilka miesięcy przed śmiercią Daniel podarował ten obraz parafii.
Abraham. O co tu chodzi? Abraham związawszy Izaaka, ułożył go na ołtarzu. Potem wyciągnął rękę, uchwycił nóż, aby zabić syna.
Człowieku, to jest spisek. Nikt nie chce poświęcać swoich dzieci, a to jest największa gwarancja lojalności.
So even in that short clip, you can really see some of the differences, as well as the similarities, in terms of the approach that HBO brought to a Scandinavian series. I think in true HBO fashion, there was a sex scene within 5 minutes of the first episode of the Polish version, and also it's a lot darker, I thought. That's fair to say. It's, I mean, the death of the brother alone is really shocking. I think where you see it there. So yeah, in terms of what HBO was able to do with the show, what were some of the decisions behind making those changes?
Well, I would say that the base for the decision of any change that you made in the format that you want to adapt must be connected with the story that you want to tell. And of course, we've got the story as a base, as something that we are building our version, local version up. But you need to find the way to tell the story locally, because if you decide to do the adaptation, it means, for me, it means only one thing: that you've got the feeling that the story might be super appealing to people in your country. And of course, you've got this conspiracy thriller thing, and this is something that will work all over the world. But if you find some specific things that they will appeal on your territory, I think that's a good adaptation. So that's what we were trying to do. And of course, those choices that, you know, the one of the characters is killing himself in a different way, it wasn't so strictly connected with our Polish kind of how do we want to commit suicide. But why we decided for this, for example, because we also dig around, I think a little bit more than you guys, around all these religious aspects. As probably you know, Poland is a very Catholic country, but we said, okay, we are telling the story from the Old Testament, which even for me means that you don't necessarily need to believe in God, but there is something huge. There is a kind of code of morality, ethics, the rules that shouldn't be forgotten. And our characters kind of forget few of them, probably the most important. So then we started to really think about what was the real story of Abraham. I mean, what is the real message? And what could be the starting point for those 18, maybe 20 years old guys who decided to establish the pact? And we said, well, they needed something. I mean, I think that it's like a human nature, that whatever you do, you feel that it would be good to have some kind of, you know, handicap to explain that, well, I did it, but I did it for this and that reason. So, and if you go farther and farther, sometimes you really lose the real point. So yeah, the religion was one of the things, and the very important thing for us was also how shall we show the city, Warsaw, and I don't know if anyone was there, but Warsaw is a kind of overused in Polish TV and film. So we were also trying to find a different way of describing the city, and we wanted the city to be one of the characters. The characters with kind of two faces. One beautiful, connected with big money, politics a bit. All right, so this beautiful face is a little bit dirty as well. But the other one, the face of the people who are, well, trying to fight for truth as our main character. So they are living in a slightly different world. I mean, the world is the same, but the way you're perceiving it is different. So, well, I think that were the key points.
Okay. And Vratislav, you produced the Czech version. And it's important to note that the Polish and the Czech remakes were occurring concurrently. So you both produced these first seasons last year over the summer. And so you were making creative decisions separately around the show. So Vratislav, what approach did you take to the format, and what did you want to bring to it to make it relevant to the Czech? viewer?
Well, Mammon is not only a fast thriller, but it's also family drama. That's a very important element. So basically, when we started writing, we working on the scripts, we put together sort of a new backstory that was character-based. We discussed, how would these, members of the family behave in our society with experience we have in Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic. We share similar history with Poland, recent history, the change in the 90s. But the transformation happened a little bit differently in a way. I would say in Poland was more slower. Ours was fast and go for it, more greedy, I would say. So we took the characters, and it suddenly, and also important to know is that Czech Republic is the most atheist country in the world.
It's the most what, sorry?
Most atheist country in the world.
Right, yes, sorry.
We're the most Protestants.
So yeah, we've got the full spread.
So that's actually good comparison. But so in terms of a story and for the audience understanding the moral decisions of the characters, we couldn't really draw on the biblical meanings. Not that Czech people wouldn't know Bible. They don't really, but anyway, it's not about explanation. It's what's inside the characters. So for us, it was more about 3 generations of men. That the father of 2 brothers, sort of being when the change came in the 90s, he hoped everything will be much better, more ethical, morally more positive. And suddenly he has these 2 sons. One of them is a good writer who represents these things for him, and a brother who just went on and saw the opportunities to sort of make huge money, and he did it. And then there's Daniel's son, who is actually between, a guy who lives in the 21st century, and he doesn't have this burden of what his grandfather lived through, or even his father. But he's confronted with the whole situation after father's suicide. So that was the basis how we worked with the characters, and obviously it went on. We created a different this financial backstory, sort of more suited to what was happening in Czechoslovakia, how the money were stolen, actually. We weren't inspired by anything specific, but we used, I think it was actually Czech Republic introduced internationally word tunneling, taking money from the companies. So we changed this to be more what people or audience, Czech audience, read in a press, what they know, how it was done, and sort of inspired by that. So, but it was basically the characters that took us in a little bit different direction. And then when you have the characters and you work with the story, then it sort of guides you through.
Mm-hmm. And Jonathan, tell me a bit more about HBO's strategy to remake to remake shows locally, rather than invest in original programming.
I think it's an organic process, and the strategy...
Sorry, could you speak a bit closer to the mic?
Yep,
Thanks.
It's an organic process, and the strategy is definitely to invest in original programming. I think you would remake a show if, as the guy said, it totally spoke to the audience, and you felt that you could say something about, if the team in the country said they could say something effectively about their country through this format better than any other way, that's a good reason to remake. But the work we're developing at the moment and that we're very excited about coming up is entirely original, which isn't to say we wouldn't look at formats, but it's an organic process.
Mm-hmm. And it's obviously HBO is the home to Game of Thrones, so viewers have all this US content, but am I right in thinking that some of the local shows have actually performed better than the US?
Yeah, we don't really discuss viewing figures, but I think the reason we're continuing to make original production would suggest that it's working well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Vegard and Jerry, going back to you guys, what were some of the things that most surprised you about the remakes? And maybe if we focus on one character, so the father of the brothers. The Polish producers made a decision to change his background, so he wasn't a priest in the Polish version.
Because I learned you can't have kids if you're a Catholic priest.
Right.
So it's a necessity.
So it's okay. Well, that makes sense. and instead his background is in the army.
But I didn't think of it unless I was being told that's why they did it. So.
And Isa, you can back that up, right?
Reasons, yeah.
Okay. Well, so what impact do you think that had on the storyline?
Well, what I think is common to all of them is that a father that treats two sons differently, and we met people that says that will not happen. If you have two children, you will treat them equally, and that was.
And we know it's not true.
Yes.
Not our father. He's super nice to both. But,
yeah, but that is the common thing, and I feel like you say the Polish version is he's darker, even darker than our father figure, while he's lighter in the Czech version. So, but they all carry the same thing, but they solve it differently. And what is very interesting is to see the differences. For us to see which scenes did they actually keep and which did they throw out, and when they throw out characters and change the characters, what they're doing, I find that most interesting.
It must be very, yeah.
But they have to, we're 6 hours and they're 6 times 50 minutes, so you have to throw out at least 1 hour of drama. So something has to go. I think the most intriguing for me, at least, was just to see the visual difference, where the core of the story. The Polish going more religious and the Czech going more political and finance, and the consequences visually through those two suicides. That when he burns like a cross. So they go all into the, which is actually works because if you write it, it looks. And then he burns like a cross. You think we can't do that. They can. It was nice. I think that was really, and the other guy fulfilling the network metaphor. I think visually, very intriguing for us. And yes, we haven't been that much involved. But if HBO buys your format, you kind of sleep better than if it was somebody else. You're not nervous when it's HBO. Okay.
And right now they are taking off somewhere else than we do because they are producing faster. Shouldn't say that, but they're doing. So
more efficiently, I think.
They're coming, and they have to go their own way because we haven't finished
season 3.
No, but they started shooting and season 2. We are just finished with the season 2 from Norway.
By the time we were on season 3, they're on season 9.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So then you'll be remaking their show, I guess.
Now it's actual competition because their storyline is brand new and ours are brand new. So now it's going to be game on.
To daily, yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating in terms of the agency that the producers have. I guess you mentioned because it's HBO, you kind of say, yeah, go ahead.
Relaxed.
So there isn't that is part of the deal, I guess, that they can turn it into anything they want. They can go for season 10, season 16, if it gets to that point.
I think the best, my ideal remake is Homeland, and it's very different from How to Film. It has the core dilemma at the start, but they changed. Well, they didn't have Carrie Matheson in the first one, in the Israel one. And that's what it has to be inspiring, an inspiring platform for remaking. It's not translation. And they should beat us. Try to, at least. Okay.
And there were some also very neat additions in the Czech Republic version. Particularly, I thought the bonsai tree that the brother Daniel uses as a metaphor, because that really the tree metaphor only comes apparent very late in your series. But so was that part? I'm assuming that was intentional, and I guess that's the benefit of having a show that you can look at and almost then you're able to take a step back.
Yes. No, at the bonsai, I mean, there's more things like this in the story. That's the phase where you sort of go back through the scripts and you sort of go through it and try to put some hints, like respect your audiences, give them some clues to catch on. Which obviously the story as a whole, the concept was very well done. So we kind of took out of it and tried to add small stuff like this, like bonsai being a symbol or something. So yeah.
And speaking of respecting the audience, does anyone have any questions? There is a mic going around, I think. Sorry, I didn't give you much warning, but we do have a question. down here at the front, very front was first. If you could introduce yourself as well, please.
Hello, my name is Murat Evgin. I'm a film and TV drama composer from Istanbul. I compose for the Turkish dramas. I just want to know, is the music one of the common things, or do you have it composed in every country for this TV drama? Or you use it?
Of course we do. I mean, music is one of the most important factors on the stage of post-production. I mean, that would be really hard for me to imagine that you use exactly the same soundtrack or score.
I mean, maybe the opening theme. No, it's not the same, right? No, it's composed.
3 different.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Helen Olive. I'm a creative producer here in Paris. I was wondering if the local productions then get exported to other countries. So, say the Czech film, the series, do we get to see it in the UK or in France? How does that work?
I'll take that one. Yes, is the answer. But I think whenever you're looking at remaking, leads on to a broader issue. Whenever you're looking at remaking a scripted program in another territory, you can't look at it in isolation alone in terms of that final version being exported. You've got to be asking yourself all the time, what's the impact of that international version? Where's the original? And a lot of the time, if you've been selling the original, and usually you give the original version some time to bed in and be exported around the world and become a success in its own right. One of the experiences we're having with Pact and Mammon with 1M is luckily they're both brilliantly amazing productions from a quality point of view. But we have to be mindful of where has Mammon Norway version sold. Obviously, HBO has a network of channels around the world, which will look very favourably on sister companies producing original content. But in terms of getting it to France, getting it to the UK, getting it to the US, it's all got to be mapped onto the strategy for the original programme and the strategy for other versions of the programme. But there's kind of the job of the distributor to be strategizing in that way to kind of commercially find the best way of making the most of the program and not just going after the money, but equally what's the best approach? Is it the best approach to do a French version or to sell Pact into France? We will always be looking for commerciality, but equally sometimes it's not just the deal that makes the most sense.
I think now's a good time as well to take a look at the Czech Republic version of Mammon as well.
Myslíš si, že všemu rozumíš, že jsi tu hru prohlídnul? Ale ve skutečnosti nevíš nic.
Děje se něco.
Ten, kdo tu hru hraje, má moc dohnat člověka k tomu, aby se zabil. Mám ze zákona právo chránit svůj zdroj.
Váš zdroj možná zavraždil vašeho bratra.
Vidíš strom a myslíš si, že vidíš všechno. Přitom vidíš jenom z kořene. To podstatní se odehrává dole u kořene. Něco mi chcete říct, ale bojíte se.
Stopy jsou všude kolem, jenom je nevidíte.
Všichni máme nepřátele.
Přestaň se chovat, jako bys neměl co ztratit.
I'd be interested to get the panel's thoughts on whether or not they think there is a drama viewer out there who would find an interest in watching different versions of the same show. And especially given that we're not held back by having to adhere to a schedule. These episodes could all go on an online service, for example, and that would almost protect them, the scheduler, from the criticism that they're putting on the same show each night. So do you think well, maybe Noel, there is potential for that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think also the changes that you've been discussing with the team here only help that happen, because you're not just getting, and it is often hard with thrillers or crime dramas or dramas with any sort of big intrigue to remake and replicate, because you're basically giving it away, and people know once it's out there. So the changes that have been made, the subtle changes in production or the big changes in production, all mean that you're getting something that on its own works very nicely and has its own identity, I suppose. SWOD's making a huge difference. I think there are people that will love the original and will also want to see what exciting new things have been brought to the table on these versions. That we are seeing that. The responses we're getting from buyers around the world are that yes, they can see that it's different. They love the original, but this is kind of enhancing the brand, if you like. But it's not quite the same as I don't know, a murder story where you release the killer's name at the end. This type of show can be adapted in a way that actually enhances rather than sort of replicates in pure sense.
Vegard?
What is interesting is that you can actually now see Pakt and the Czech version of Mammon in Norway, but you can't see our version because of the rights.
Because my Writers Guild are based on contracts from the 17th century. So digital is not part of it.
But in looking into all the three series, what is very interesting is that they all end differently. So you don't know where they end. You like in a crime story, you think, oh, you follow the villain all the time, but you don't know who's the one.
And if everybody gets 3 seasons, it will evolve in very different directions. So for not historical purposes, but if I think it will last for like 10 years, you can still see Mammon and not being too dated. Then it would be interesting to see this travels this way, this travels that way. I don't think we're going to be similar in season 2. Or I heard we have some similarities, but not identical. Our guy grew a beard as well to make them. That really didn't work. Taking notes. Don't try that.
Wrestler?
Well, I mean, as we discussed before, I mean, it's the Czech and Polish Mammon are different with the experience of the characters. So for me, it's interesting to watch Polish Mammon because I learned something about the characters. I understand the story. It's a genre. It's entertaining, but it tells something about society. So I think audience is interested in seeing how people live around Europe, for example. That's definitely, I could enjoy watching 2 similar stories or same stories from different countries.
I think that's the thing. It's in Mammon particularly is the world that we're dealing with, the world of politics, the world of journalism, the world of finance. It's interesting. Well, they're big, obviously big worlds, international worlds, but to see it locally and how the sort of machinations and the manoeuvrings in those worlds are different, that provides a fascination, I think, for other territories to see. Whereas, obviously, we sell Doc Martin, for example, and I think that's a different remaking Doc Martin. I don't think a UK audience is going to be quite as interested in seeing Doc Martin in France or Doc Martin in Greece, because it's very much, that's a locally kind of aimed project, and we're dealing with something that's much more insular, much more contained, and it's clearly there for a local audience, whereas Mammon's themes are big, and broad, and offer lots of different things to get interested in.
So it's not just a remake of the
Bible,
Bible,
for God's
it's
sake.
the Bible and the media. Bible and the media.
And Jonathan, as someone who's worked across both remakes.
Well, of course, I've seen them both. And I think that's what's really great about it is that central character, actually, is how, as a viewer, how the casting and the way the writers initially conceive of Piotr or Petr in their shows, and then how the actor that you cast organically shapes through the shoot the way the show develops. So I'm totally with Vracha when he says it's family drama as well. And I think you invest in that character, and as that character takes you on a journey, you see the subtle shifts that are to do with how people react to a specific character. And I think that's why you easily watch all three shows and find that they complement each other and kind of, for me anyway, sort of enhance each other. You know, you get a deeper perception of the Norwegian show and appreciation of it through having worked on the Polish and the Czech show, and the same would go for all of the shows. So I would hope that people would watch all three.
It's an interesting take on the too much TV mantra, because if we're now just watching remakes of shows we've already watched, then where does it end? And obviously you guys are Norwegian, and there's obviously, everyone knows about Scandi noir and Nordic noir. To my Eastern European producers, is a similar kind of genre emerging out of Eastern Europe at the moment? Are there similarities between the countries? Obviously each one is very, very different and has had very different histories, but in terms of the kind of storytelling, is there anything unified emerging?
I don't think so. I mean, from my perspective, Polish guys are not so, experienced in telling genre stories and writing them by our own, I mean, from scratches. And this is the road that we're just trying to establish.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, these terms are sort of put in retrospect usually, but I'd say there's some things happening in Central Europe, definitely thanks to HBO, for example. So what we sort of try to coin now is, because the Czechs like to sort of make fun in a time they're kind of serious and dark, so we try to coin a term comedy noir, which would describe lots of Czech films, and internationally it's like Coen Brothers style. That's what we're trying to do, and we see some patterns of that in Czech cinema and TV, and would like to do more projects in comedy noir genre. Mm-hmm.
Jerry, did you want to say something?
No, I wanted to cough.
Oh, sorry. And in terms of, so Jonathan, you've worked on, you mentioned that original production and original IP, as it were, is now for the focus on HBO, for HBO. Where would you say the greater risk lies? Does it lie in remaking an existing series, or in doing a new show?
Oh, I think the key to it is the word original. So I think that if you're going to make an original, remake a show, you need to make it in an original way. But to do something from scratch is a real leap into the unknown. So I think our brief is to make shows that feel original, and I think that's always going to be risky. I wouldn't say one was risky than the other. There's the safety net with a really strong format, but then the risk is that you're not going to push it far enough into that original space. And the risk without the sort of really strong format is finding that core of an idea that feels really original. But I think you have to do that with a remake anyhow. You know, the heartbeat of the Czech show is Czech, and the heartbeat of the Polish show is Polish. There are huge similarities between the shows and the Norwegian original. The end of episodes are almost identical. Some of the sequences play out identically, but if you're watching the show, you feel that they are original and true to the countries and the authors that made them. And I think any sort of pursuit of originality is risky.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes.
I have the power, sorry.
Sorry?
It's me here.
Who's this?
Hello.
Oh, it's God. Okay, go on.
I'd like to hear about the writing process, or at least how many writers have been involved in the adaptations, and have the original writers been involved in the writing process of the adaptations? That you have to approve stuff, for example. Oh, thank you.
All right, so in Poland we had 4 writers in the room plus the head writer. We had like few discussions with guys, but they didn't read the production scripts, for example. I mean, they didn't ask for the approval, which I really appreciate. For a very simple reason, they believe that we won't screw the show. So well, that was the writers' room.
Yes, we had one main writer, and then one episode was written by another one. We sort of got material from HBO with the basic concept by Bible. We work with that. In adapting the backstory, 3 people work on it. So writers' room had like 4 people at certain moments. We discussed it with some more, but one main writer and one writer who wrote 1 episode. But it was a teamwork. It was definitely teamwork.
Well, we're season 1. I'm the only writer, but I make the story with my brother. We have a room. We do all our fighting in. A lot of fighting, but it's fun. Season 2, we wanted to make a writer's room with writers, so we had 2 more. They kind to learn to know us in another sense. But that was fun as well. When it comes to, we didn't approve anything, but we had a meeting with Jonathan, and when you have made a drama and you meet a guy or a person, you could have been a woman, not to be sexist, and you understand that they completely understand the story, and they have a seriousness in the characters, in the suspense mechanisms and the mystery of it. We felt it was in very good hands, because he could have been an asshole, and then we would be very worried. And I'll probably had a phone call or something and tried to get some approval and wouldn't get it.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. We generally, when we go into these scripted rights to remake, there is a conversation prior to like anything happening, or like a discussion between the parties to make sure that people are on the same page. What are they planning to do? Or, to make sure they're not planning to turn it into, a musical or something like that, which is completely unsuitable. Well, that would be a great idea.
Let's talk.
So we do that. So it's carefully, it's not just signed, let go. It's carefully understood what everyone's intending to do.
And if you may, I think making TV drama is very difficult. And if you're supposed to have approval things, you need to know a lot more than sitting in another country reading some drafts. You need to know all the other choices. So it would be just completely arrogant to sit on another planet saying, "You changed this. Why?" They're doing something very difficult in Poland and in Czech. So I think it's unnatural to impose, do this and don't do that. On their creativity and their process.
Yes, so it's very important to go our own way. But I think like the big impact was Jonathan, who was traveling between Prague and Warsaw and working with both Czech and Polish teams, but never mixing us together, which I think was important. So I think his work in sort of helping us, at least in Prague, to shape the story, to keep it working in terms of genre and the characters, it was very, very important. So it was, I would say, like it was 2 writers' room in 2 countries, and Jonathan was sort of running between them. But I want to say, I mean, what I see as an important thing is obviously we saw that HBO Europe has a big impact on what's happening in TV in Europe or in Central Europe, at least. And but I think it's not only the finished things that are very good, but also how the connection is made. And in this case, it's thanks to the format. We're all sitting here, we talk to each other, and there is something that we all liked in the original story. We sort of took it, changed it somehow, but I think we found the similar taste in what we want to tell in the future. And I think in creating like a European TV market where the stories might be remade for different countries, but there is still a connection, and it's starts creative and it becomes industry. We find the same voice, we find the same audience that is willing to pay for what it's watching, and that's very important. And I think that's why there's a golden age of television now. What's happening in Europe in TV, the audience connection, it's great. It's not really happening with film for many years. And I think thanks to HBO and thanks to setting up shows like Mammon in this way, it gets faster. And for our territory with kind of historically different experience, how you deal with scripts, how you produce, how you work, kind of being introduced to the way how HBO works, it's not only inspirational, but it's kind of put in practice. And you get to experience a different way of working with the script and producing, and it just changes the industry, and it's very important.
And I imagine the next twist in this story of remakes is the US version. So, Noel, could you give me an update on where that is? Please.
There's lots of interest in Mammon in the US. It's actually been optioned twice. And like the vagaries of US development, there's lots of whenever there is a really dynamic show out there, there's going to be interest from lots of parties in the US. So it was optioned very early on. Didn't go through to pilot for various reasons. The second option didn't result in anything, so we are trying a third time with another party. And that's really a reflection of the American system, things working in the way they work, rather than the show. The show will get made in America, there is no doubt. I think it's actually more advantageous for the program to have these versions going on. The US version can be done in 10 years' time. It will still be effective, but let's feel that the brand of Mammon is growing into something unique internationally first, rather than hitting a US. But everyone's interested in getting a US version.
I think House of Cards turned out great. Okay, some years it wasn't like that first year. Then.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, there was a bit of a gap, wasn't there?
Can I follow up there? Do you mind? Hi.
Go ahead.
I'm an Australian journalist based here, and I write for SBS TV a lot, the website of the foreign language broadcaster. I'm just wondering, following up on your point, where internationally are these Polish and Czech versions going? I mean, where do they end up? Are there deals in place?
Yeah, I mean, we took them down to MIP, for example, and there's conversations. So we've sold them in several territories already.
Which ones?
Yeah,
well,
I'd like to know which ones and which ones go where. It's interesting to
see.
Well,
obviously
the two journalists asking.
HBO's sister channels are very good in that respect. We are having the conversations on these in Australia at the moment, because SBS have the original. We haven't sold it there yet, but we've only just launched these two shows. I think what's interesting actually, the world is sort of quite used to Scandinavian content on the market now. And I think it's, thanks to the quality of these productions, it's just opening its eyes to what the rest of the world is, and certainly Eastern Europe, Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, what they can bring to the table. So there is, I'll be quite honest with you, there is an element of, we haven't had a Polish drama before, we haven't had a Czech drama before, we need to get used to this. Thankfully, something as good as quality as this helps an awful lot, because it's really sort of in-your-face, strong editorial. But it takes a bit more time. And also, to go back to my original point, Mammon is already out there on, the Norwegian version is already out there. So there is a discussion over, well, do we need another one? And competing channels, often the obstacle is, well, that channel's got Mammon, I don't really want to have the same show. So there's lots of elements to be discussed. It's not a straightforward kind of, here's the show, do you want to buy it? There's quite a big dynamic to it.
Okay, and so far, how have the sales been going? Where have the various
I'm not going to list all the territories here, but it has been selling, and we've sold a fair chunk of Europe already. We haven't sold Australia yet, if that's what you're interested in.
Or Asia?
No, we haven't sold it in Asia yet. They're hard. For a foreign language drama, that's hard. That's much harder. Yeah.
But the original version has been in 27 countries now, so it's quite.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, I'm not missing anyone, am I? No. And we know, so each series is at a different stage now. So with you guys, you're writing season 3 at the moment, is that right? But it hasn't been officially commissioned by NRK.
What we are focusing on, and still will do, is not to write a show that will travel. It has to work in Norway. We have to write about the Norwegian politics system, finance and media. And to create Mammon as an event, because that's the job we have to do in Norway, so everybody watch this on Sundays and discuss it on Mondays. That's the way NRK wants to do it, and it still is possible. Even if people are watching it on the player, it still is the lunch talk on Mondays. and that's our job.
Fantastic. And you're in production on season 2?
Yeah, we're shooting to be broadcast. The second season is to be broadcast in autumn this year.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I think we're overrunning. So unless there are some more, there's one more question from the audience. I think there should be a microphone coming to you. Just down here.
Come in.
And this is the last one. No pressure.
Make it about the Bible.
Hello. I just have a question regarding the idea of remaking. Why do you choose to remake an original program instead of just trying to sell it to other countries? Like, for instance, in France, we didn't decide to remake The Office or The Wire. We just watched the original version. So how come you choose to take an original product, to change it with the culture of a country and to sell it? Just
it's not always up to us. There's lots of people deciding these things. So obviously, usually the first thing is the original will get offered, the original tape will get offered internationally. And then any remake is very much complementary business on top of that, you know, and can be a very good opportunity if the original tape maybe isn't going to sell, that actually a localized version of the scripts will be much more suitable and adaptable. Whether that happens or not, whether a remake happens or not, is very much down to who you're talking to, what a broadcaster's needs are, what their local budgets are for original production, which are separate to acquisition budgets. So there's no clear answer to your question, I don't think, but it is kind of, a lot of it's down to the individual territory you're dealing with and what you want to do with the content as a finished and format, what you want to do with it all, really. And then it comes down to what the buyer wants as well.
I can hear people's stomachs rumbling, so we're going to have to end there. But I'd like to end by thanking my panel and also thanking Séries Mania. And both series are available to watch in the video library, both remakes.